Amazing truth revealed. Doctor warns me to keep my daughter away from my husband after 10 years. The fluorescent lights buzzed mockingly overhead as Sarah Thompson sat in the pediatrician's office, cradling 10-year-old Emily in her arms. Just days ago they had looked forward to the annual Thanksgiving family gathering, but now the thought of a feast felt hollow, replaced by the dread of uncertainty. Routine checkup, she'd told herself, but the gravity of Dr. Reed's expression shattered that illusion. We need to talk about some concerning results. Each word carved deep into her, stirring memories of laughter and warmth within their family, now smothered by creeping shadows. What could possibly be wrong that they hadn't seen, hadn't felt? Trust was the cornerstone of her marriage with Mark, the charming football coach whose laughter echoed through their home. She prided herself on their perfect family life. Loyalty, love, shared dreams. But the word trauma loomed large like a dark cloud. Anxiety churned violently. Could someone whom she thought she knew, who had shared so many intimate moments, harbor a past that threatened their daughter's safety? The small room confined them, the walls seeming to tighten as Sarah's thoughts raced. Danger felt abstract, yet now it bore down hard. Was it her husband hiding darkness or her innocence? Before she could answer, uncertainty began replacing tranquility within her. Sarah had always shielded Emily with fierce love, but now that protection felt inadequate. What if the storm swirling in her heart stemmed from Mark? She grappled with memories of his late-night absences and the friends he once partied with every weekend. He'd called them old friends. She'd chosen to believe his reassurances. But now, doubt crept in with venomous whispers that clawed at her heart. Could he be the threat? And how could she confront him without shattering the fragile happiness they had built? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Dr. Reed's voice broke through Sarah's reverie, asking her to consider every detail, even the smallest hints. Her own inner turmoil erupted. Each inquiry was a potential landmine, exploding pieces of her perception of Mark all around her. Did she want the truth? Did it even matter if it meant losing everything? She felt simultaneously trapped and determined, a whirlwind of emotion that left her gasping. The thought of ripping apart the facade of a perfect life was terrifying, yet the thought of her daughter, vulnerable and innocent, made the triviality of their foibles insignificant. As Thanksgiving approached, the tension weighed heavier, day by day. Mark remained blissfully unaware, his smile bright enough to mask anything. But Sarah craved the truth. She needed it. She no longer recognized the woman staring back in the mirror. A fierce desire to confront him slowly twisted into a suffocating dread. Could she probe deeper into Mark's past without unearthing something that would shatter their family irrevocably? This singular moment loomed before her like a precipice, demanding she decide before she could take another step. Mark's dark secrets ached to be unveiled, yet could Sarah endure the toll it might take? Her heart thudded, upholding the illusion or exposing the monster. The answer remained elusive as she dove into uncertainty, inching closer to an inevitable, life-altering reveal. Every morning, Sarah woke with the weight of her doubts pressing on her chest. The ambiance of their home, once filled with laughter, had become a ghost of joy, echoing emptily in her heart. As she prepared breakfast, she observed Emily's innocent face. Her daughter remained blissfully unaware, a stark contrast to the turmoil simmering beneath the surface. Yet the clarity of love mixed dangerously with the haze of anxiety. Days trickled into each other, and Thanksgiving loomed like a shadow. That morning, as she meticulously arranged the dining table, her hands shook. The familiar decorations, family heirlooms and seasonal crafts, suddenly felt like masks concealing something grotesque. Sarah paused, a fork trembling in her grip, grappling with the domesticity that no longer felt genuine. Each setting represented a lie, a facade she could no longer maintain. Her thoughts diverted to the conversation from the pediatrician's office, Dr. Reed's concerned tone and the implications it had for her family. "Keep your daughter safe," the doctor had insisted. Safety. The word echoed in her mind like a lifeline, yet also a reminder of her encroaching dread. Could Mark, the man who had high-fived her after every football victory and celebrated their anniversary with romantic getaways, truly harbor darkness? The days following that fateful visit saw changes in Sarah. Determination pushed her into action. She began revisiting old conversations with Mark, analyzing every exchange for hidden meanings. His casual mentions of old friends morphed into points of suspicion. She inadvertently found herself conducting a personal investigation, searching through old photos and social media posts, trying to piece together a puzzle she was not sure she wanted to complete. As she explored online, she uncovered threads of intrigue surrounding Mark's past. Pictures from college parties displayed faces she vaguely remembered, smiling, carefree. But shadows lingered behind those smiles, something neither she nor Emily had ever fully known. Sarah felt a shiver run down her spine. She observed their seemingly idyllic life become frayed at the edges, each thread representing a memory that now provoked fear rather than comfort. Conversations grew heavy, marked by Sarah's reluctance and Mark's oblivion. He seemed unchanged, unaffected by the turmoil swirling in her mind. Each cheery comment about Thanksgiving plans clashed horrifically with her growing discontent. The mental gap between them widened until it felt insurmountable. She found herself skimming over dinner topics, suppressing the urgency to dig deeper. Unused to living in deceit, Sarah felt trapped in this masquerade. Should she expose his alleged past now, or wait for further evidence? That evening, everything felt unbearable. Alone in the kitchen, she made a decision. A plan brewed within her. Perhaps a nudge was all that was needed. She could approach Mark delicately, with non-threatening inquiries, and gauge his reactions. Could his body language betray secrets? But the thought also terrified her. What if she misstepped? What if her probing only served to erode the foundation they had built together? As Emily giggled in the living room, the future of their family hung in limbo. Sarah clenched her fists, torn between resolution and fear of the unknown. Each moment spent contemplating the confrontation tightened the coils of anxiety that bound her courage. The need to act pulsated within her veins. The time for believing in the perfect family had come to an end. Would her plan uncover the truth she craved? Or would it tear apart the fabric of loyalty she once held dear? As the shadows of doubt loomed, Sarah recognized that each second spent waiting drew her closer to a precipice destined for confrontation. The unsettling understanding settled heavily in her mind. Her daughter deserved clarity. Tomorrow would come, but it would not be like today. Stronger and more resolute, Sarah would have to face Mark and unearth the secret that threatened to undermine their family. The moment approached, tightening around her like a noose, even as she knew she would have to jump into the fray. But as determination surged within her, another nagging thought lurked just beneath the surface. What if Mark wasn't the monster she feared, and he wasn't hiding anything at all? She shook her head, refusing to yield to such thoughts. Trust was an illusion. She needed answers. But would she be prepared for what those answers might reveal? The sun barely peeked over the horizon, casting long shadows across the kitchen as Sarah poured herself a cup of coffee. Each sip a moment of reflection. Today was the day. The coarse feel of the mug against her palm was a grounding reminder in a world that had suddenly become alien. She peered into the depth of the dark brew, searching for clarity in its bottomless depths. But all she found was a swirling vortex of anxiety. With each minute that passed, her resolve to confront Mark thickened, a concrete presence in her gut. She imagined his face, the creases around his eyes when he smiled, the warmth of his touch. Yet doubts gnawed at her like a constant itch, urging her to remember Dr. Reed's warning. Keep Emily safe. Emily. The name brought forth an overwhelming sense of purpose. Sarah inhaled deeply, calming the rising tide of panic within her. As she practiced her opening lines in front of the bathroom mirror, each word a careful touchstone, sparking with hesitance, she caught sight of herself. This was not the woman who had stood before that mirror in her wedding dress, so full of confidence and dreams. This was a woman hollowed out by the fear of betrayal and the impending confrontation. Who had she become? What had she allowed their lives to morph into? In her heart, a sense of fight began to replace the hesitance. With a swift motion, she splashed cold water on her face, steeling herself for the morning ahead. As Mark stirred from his sleep and moved through his routine, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing within her, Sarah took her opportunity. "Can we talk?" she managed, the simple phrase slipping from her lips like an incantation meant to summon courage. As they settled into an awkward silence at the breakfast table, she noted how the tension hung thick in the air, weaving between their unspoken words. Mark's eyes glinted with concern, but Sarah held her resolve. She began with light inquiries, remarking on mundane topics, the weather, the upcoming holidays, trying to peel away the layers of normalcy. Each mundane thread of conversation, however, only served to fray her composure, pushing her closer to the precipice she had spent sleepless nights dreading. What if her probing led to a backlash she wasn't prepared to handle? What if questioning his innocence became the very poison that distanced them? She swallowed hard, weighing fear against the vital need for safety. "Mark, do you remember anyone from college?" The question had slipped out unbidden, but she couldn't retract it now. She watched him freeze, his brow furrowing. "Of course," he replied, the air growing still with uncertainty. "Why do you ask?" The tone of his voice sent a jolt through her. Was it mere nostalgia ignited by her inquiry, or was there something else? He was an actor, playing his part, but perhaps hiding a complexity she had yet to unravel. Her heart raced. "Just thinking back on those days," she offered, the lie hanging delicately, suspended between them. In that moment, Sarah saw flashes of indecision flitting across his expression. A flicker, a ripple of something unsettling that sent her confusion spiraling into deeper fear. Did you ever have any trouble during that time?" The words escaped before she could hold them back. Mark blinked, a moment of vulnerability flashing in his eyes. "We all have regrets from our past," he whispered, and the look he gave her, a mixture of sorrow and sincerity, made her question her entire narrative. A sudden wave of guilt washed over her. Had she pushed too far? There was a part of her that sought validation for her concerns, and another that feared the unraveling of the life they had built. A life that now rested precariously on a thread of uncertainty. As the seconds stretched into eternity, Sarah felt the tension being gauged. Yet still she clung to her mission. Determined now more than ever, she resolved to dig deeper into the stories that surrounded them, each interaction potentially holding secrets. Her mind raced with questions of how to approach her next move. As she made her decision, she felt a tremor of power surge within, mingled with the inevitable dread of what awaited her. Behind the veneer of their domesticity lay hidden complexities, ripe for exploration. Unmasking them could either lead to a truth she dreaded, or a path towards some long-seeking clarity. The moment was pregnant with possibility, the stakes exponentially heightened. Would Mark's past, or lack of it, be the anchor she needed to keep her family safe? Or would it pull them into turbulent waters even she hadn't anticipated? The tension in the air thickened anew, compelling her towards an inevitable turning point she could no longer avoid. The silence weighed heavily as Sarah searched Mark's eyes for any hint of the truth, but his expression remained inscrutable. Doubts whirled in her mind, intertwining with the remnants of their shared history. How could she delve deeper without jeopardizing everything they had built? "Mark," she started, the name heavy in the air. "I need you to be completely honest with me. Is there anything you haven't told me about your past?" The question hung between them, echoing her deepest fears. For a fleeting moment, the room felt charged, alive with the tension of unspoken words. Mark shifted in his chair, his fingers drumming nervously against the table. "What do you mean?" he asked, feigning confusion. But she noticed the slight shadow that crossed his features. It was as if he were a tightrope walker, teetering above the depth of his concealed secrets. She leaned forward, her determination crystallizing alongside her fear. "I mean, have you ever been in trouble? With anyone? Is there something you're hiding?" The words tumbled out in a rush, each syllable punctuated by the rapid thudding of her heart. He hesitated, a flicker of vulnerability surfacing as he searched for words. And in that moment, she saw not just her husband, but a man burdened with fragments of a past he couldn't shake off. "There are things we all wish we could change," he finally admitted, the weight of his voice leading her back to that ominous evening when their life had begun to feel so precarious. As the silence enveloped them like a shroud, Sarah realized she could no longer skirt around the truth. A rush of bravery ignited within her. She refused to let her fears dictate their reality, and she was ready to confront whatever lay beneath the surface. "Then let's face them together. I need to know. For Emily's sake." Mark's expression transformed into something unreadable, shifting from concern to defiance in seconds. "You don't know what you're asking for," he warned, and she felt a chill creep up her spine. The whisper of history lingered, a promise of revelations that could change everything. "Maybe I don't," Sarah replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "But I'm tired of living in the shadows of your past. I need to understand what we're up against." A slow frown crossed his brow. "What if it's worse than you imagine?" "Then we face it," she challenged, her tone unwavering. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about Emily, about their safety, her maternal instinct sharpening her focus. The tension between them shifted, crackling and pulsing with potential. It felt like crystal waters colliding with jagged rocks, each one holding the possibility of catastrophe or clarity. Mark leaned back, his shoulders drooping slightly as if the weight of the world pressed down on him. "You're asking for a truth that might shatter everything," he said, his voice a low rumble, the warning echoing in Sarah's mind like a siren. "I'm willing to take that risk," she responded, feeling the flush of adrenaline course through her. Whatever consequences awaited, she would meet them head-on, ready to fortify her resolve with every ounce of courage she possessed. For a heartbeat they were suspended in time, the air taut with possibility. Then with a heavy sigh, Mark looked away. "Fine, I'll tell you." He relented, his voice laced with resignation. With each word he was about to share, Sarah felt the ground beneath her shift. Could this truly be the key to breaking free from her fears? But just as he opened his mouth to speak, the shrill ring of her phone shattered the silence, jolting both of them back to reality. Sarah glanced down, her heart stuttering as she read the caller ID. It was Dr. Reed. "Excuse me," she muttered, her gut twisting with instinctive unease as she hurried to take the call. "Sarah, we need to talk right now. It's about Emily and Mark." The urgency in Dr. Reed's voice sliced through the haze of the moment, every word weighing heavily with unspoken implications. Caught between revelations and foreboding truths, Sarah realized she was standing at a crossroads, one path leading deeper into the murky waters of discovery, while the other threatened to sweep her back into a life of uncertainty. Could she withstand what awaited her on either side? And did she truly have the strength to face the revelations that could reshape their future? As she exchanged hurried glances with Mark, the gravity of their situation settled once more. The game was only beginning, and now more than ever, everything was at stake. Would she have the courage to confront the past, or would she remain ensnared in a web of secrets threatening to unravel her world? The next chapter of their story was about to unfold, and Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that it would lead her to an intersection of choices she couldn't escape. The urgency in Dr. Reed's voice rattled through Sarah like a jolt of electricity, dissolving the intimacy of the moment with Mark. She could feel the pulse of anxiety quickening in her chest, and the remnants of courage that had swelled moments before, faltering under the gravity of Dr. Reed's words. "What do you mean?" she demanded, her voice soft, but edged with alarm. Dr. Reed hesitated on the other end, then spoke in measured tones. "There are certain patterns we've observed in Emily's behavior. Her responses, her fears. And given your husband's past, there are some serious concerns we have about whether it's safe for her to be around him." The room closed in around Sarah as her mind surged in a cacophony of questions. Mark's past, the very shadow she sought to illuminate, had now lurched forward, a specter come to claim the peace she had so desperately tried to maintain. Without a second thought, her hand moved instinctively to her stomach, the weight of protectiveness crashing down upon her. "Dr. Reed, what kind of patterns? What are you seeing?" She pressed, her voice barely above a whisper, each word feeling more fragile than the last. "Emily exhibits signs of anxiety when discussing Mark, almost as if she fears him," Dr. Reed explained, the calmness in her voice a stark contrast to the turmoil roiling inside Sarah. "It's subtle but persistent. Children are often more aware than we realize. I think it might be best to limit her exposure to him until we figure this out." Sarah's mind raced. Limit her exposure? The mere suggestion scraped against her maternal instincts. Yet, a deeper fissure cracked open beneath the surface of her world, revealing the stark reality of their situation. She had believed in Mark's fundamental goodness, but what if Emily had sensed something darker lurking just beneath? "I don't understand. Why wouldn't she have told me?" The hurt in her voice was palpable, and as the last words punctuated the silence, she felt the walls close in even tighter. Children often don't articulate their fears directly. They can internalize them, manifesting in ways that might seem innocuous, Dr. Reed replied. "I'm not saying Mark is a danger, but based on our observations, it's essential that we tread carefully." The weight of Dr. Reed's warning was profound, each syllable echoing with a chilling resonance. "You need to talk to Mark," Dr. Reed continued. "Understand his past fully because it could be crucial for Emily's stability." As the conversation ended, Sarah slowly lowered her phone, dread settling in her stomach. She turned to Mark, who had remained spectating their call. His expression was still tight, lips pressed together, eyes narrowed in concern. "Dr. Reed thinks we need to talk. About Emily. About you." Her breath hitched in her throat. The moment was fragile, time stretching like a taut rubber band, threatening to snap at any second. Mark's brows knitted together, forming a deep line across his forehead. "What did she say?" The tension in his voice hinted at a myriad of emotions. Anger? Fear? "That Emily. She may be afraid of you," Sarah murmured, each word falling like a stone in water. For the first time, Mark's defenses seemed to waver, an undercurrent of vulnerability breaking through. "That's preposterous," he exclaimed, but the tremor in his voice served as a stark counterpoint to his indignation. It's not just her imagination, Mark. It's what Dr. Reed is suggesting. The pit of dread deepened as she watched Mark's expression shift, the mask cracking slightly, allowing the flicker of doubt to shine through. Is that what this is really about? He challenged, his eyes narrowing, seizing on the defensive gear he had relied upon for so long. You don't trust me? After all these years? Sarah's heart raced, torn between her loyalty to Mark and her instinct to protect Emily. I don't know what to trust anymore, she replied, the words slicing through the tension with an unexpected sharpness. I need you to be open with me, now more than ever. As the air grew heavy with unasked questions, Sarah realized that the past was not merely a shadow, but an entity pulsating with life, ready to unleash truth that could shatter their fragile existence. The room felt distinctly colder, the stakes taller than before. Fine, Mark said, his voice a whisper, a flicker of resignation igniting anew. I'll talk, but you need to promise me that you'll listen with an open mind. Only if you promise not to hold back, she replied, her determination battling against the churn of uncertainty. Both unable to fully grasp the crossroads they now stood upon, Sarah sensed her journey was only beginning. Whatever revelations awaited them, she bolstered herself with a relentless urge for clarity, a beacon against the shadows encroaching upon them. As Sarah gazed into Mark's eyes, searching for the man she'd once loved, her own revelations began to take shape. What if the truth wasn't just darker than she imagined, but rather, it held the power to transform everything she thought she knew about love, fear, and sacrifice. With hope, dread, and a burgeoning resolve, Sarah could feel the winds of change swirling around them, her heart pounding in anticipation. As shrouded truths began to unfurl, she was left questioning. Was she ready for the echoes of the past to cascade into their present? Or would it be the unraveling of everything she'd fought to build? Sarah's heart raced as she stood before Mark, a tempest of emotions swirling within her. The weight of Dr. Reed's warning hung between them, an invisible barrier thickening the air, rendering her thoughts fragmented. Doubt clawed at her. Here they were, two individuals on the precipice of either destruction or clarity. The reality of what lay ahead felt insurmountable. Mark's jaw clenched, his eyes holding a flicker of vulnerability, yet his walls didn't fully crack. What do you want from me, Sarah? Do you want to hear something you won't believe? It stung, an impulsive jab that she'd expect from a stranger, not from the man she'd once thought she knew intimately. I want the truth, Mark, she said, her voice steadier than the turmoil beneath. Not just for me, but for Emily. If there's something you're hiding, if there's something you've done, we need to face it together. The challenge in her voice acted as a catalyst, drawing out his defenses. As he hesitated, she saw the internal battle raging within him. His features softened momentarily, and for a breath, vulnerability peeked through his facade. You think I could hurt her? After everything? I don't know what to think anymore. Sarah replied, frustration simmering just below her skin. This isn't about blame. It's about understanding. If there are ghosts in your past that you haven't shared, they're haunting all of us now. He took a step back, the distance between them morphing into an unbridgeable chasm. You think I wanted any of this? Mark's voice trembled, and she saw anger flicker between despair and fear. You only believe what Dr. Reed told you. You haven't even considered my side, my experiences. There's more at stake here than just your feelings, she shouted, her own emotions spilling out in waves. Emily's safety is paramount. If there's any part of you that resonates with what Dr. Reed observed, if there's any darkness, you need to confront it, for her sake. The tension escalated in the room, and as silence loomed, Sarah braced herself against the tide of uncertainty. She felt that old familiar ache, the gnawing fear of what lay hidden and unvoiced. What if Mark, determined to protect his image, withheld critical truths that could affect their daughter's future? Taking a deep breath, she shifted her approach. "Let's start small," she said, trying to anchor the conversation. "What happened at work last month? You seemed so withdrawn, so different. Was there something that troubled you?" Mark's expression flickered, shadows dancing in the corners of his eyes. He was caught between confessing and maintaining his guard. "It's work stress. You know how it gets. I never thought—" His voice broke off, and she could sense he was grappling with feelings that skirted the edges of his reality. "Then why not just let me in?" The words burst forth, propelled by her desperation for connection. "It feels like I'm trying to reach you through a wall that you've built up. I need to understand what's imprisoning you, what could potentially hurt our daughter." Shifting her weight, she crossed her arms, trying to take control of her own spiraling fears. They were at a crossroads, and each path branched into unpredictable futures. She wanted to be brave. She knew she had to confront Mark, but part of her felt a pang of apprehension at what revelations might emerge. Each secret could offer a glimpse of hope, or plunge them deeper into chaos. Mark's gaze held an intensity as he contemplated her words. "Maybe I don't want to talk about it because I don't want to drag you into my past," he murmured. "What if you don't like what you hear?" "Then I'll deal with it, just like we deal with everything else," Sarah urged, the determination in her voice now resonating louder than the fear that threatened to engulf her. "But I cannot protect Emily if I don't know the whole story. Please, trust me enough to share." His defenses seemed to flicker, the struggle evident on his face. Would he relent? Would she finally grasp the fuller picture she so desperately sought? The question hung palpably in the air, their future steeped in uncertainty. For a moment, Sarah felt as though the fragile thread connecting them might snap under the weight of unspoken truths. The potential for anguish loomed large, yet so did the possibility of healing. The moment was fragile, hope intertwined with fear, but it was necessary to move forward. As she waited for Mark's response, an unfamiliar resolve began to settle within her. Whatever lay ahead was uncertain, but she was prepared to confront it head-on. Perhaps the truth she sought would illuminate the shadows, guiding them toward a path where love could endure, or unearth the fractures that had long evaded their notice. "Fine," Mark finally whispered, a tremor in his voice. "I'll talk, but you must promise me one thing. You'll keep your heart open, no matter how hard it gets." "I promise," she replied, feeling a fragile spark of hope ignite between them. And amid the brewing storm of revelations yet to come, a single thought surged in Sarah's mind. What hidden truths would rise to the surface with this reckoning, and would their shared strength be enough to weather the storm? The room felt charged, every breath a conscious effort as Sarah and Mark stood on the brink of an emotional abyss. The promise she made lingered in her mind like an unturned page in a suspenseful novel. What would it reveal? She knew the stakes were high, not just for them but for Emily, their innocent bystander in this storm of secrets. Mark shifted uncomfortably, his eyes flicking to the window, as if he sought an escape route. Sarah sensed the hesitation, the reluctance to peel back the protective layers that had formed over the years. Each layer, while shielding him from the world, also obscured her and their daughter from the truth. Her heart thundered louder with each passing second, wrapping her in a cloak of urgency. "All right," he finally murmured, his voice a fragile thread. "Let's begin with the last quarter at work. There were layoffs, and I was one of the last to know." Sarah raised an eyebrow, intrigued but tense. "That sounds stressful, but there must be more to it than just stress." Mark's gaze faltered. It was more than that. I felt trapped, like I couldn't breathe, and not just because of the layoffs. I knew the pressure was building, but I ignored the signs. Work wasn't the only thing stressing me out. What do you mean? She pressed, her pulse quickening. What else was there? He closed his eyes, and it felt as though he were summoning the strength to continue. I started drinking more at home, he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. The stress became unbearable, and I thought, if I could just relax, things would feel manageable again. I convinced myself that I could control it. Each word hit Sarah like a blow. A deep-seated fear that had lurked in the shadows of her mind suddenly gaining substance. "Mark," she said, carefully choosing her words. "How long has this been going on?" He opened his eyes, revealing a cocktail of guilt and shame. "I thought I could handle it, but it's getting worse. I can't even manage to talk to you about it without feeling like I'm failing." The revelation hung heavily in the air, transforming the moment into something visceral. "You're not a failure for feeling overwhelmed. But not dealing with it is what could hurt Emily." Mark looked away, ashamed and conflicted. "I didn't think it would come to this. A meeting with you and my therapist discussing every dark corner of my mind. It feels like I'm being exposed." Sarah took a step closer, her tone softer but unwavering. "But it's necessary for all of us to heal. The path to understanding starts right here, right now. I can't shield you from the consequences those choices might bring, but I can be here to help." He remained silent, as if the weight of his choices was too profound to bear. Yet within the silence, she detected a flicker of hope. Perhaps admitting the truth was the first step toward a breakthrough, a doorway they had never opened. Mark hesitated. "I've also noticed how I can become easily annoyed, consumed by everything that isn't perfect, but I didn't realize how out of control it truly felt." "Frustration is normal," Sarah said, "but how you cope with it is critical. You need to focus on healing. Not just for you, but for Emily." His harsh exterior burrowed deep within. "Do you really think I can fix this?" There was a childlike vulnerability in his inquiry, one that sent prickles of compassion through Sarah. "Change is possible," she replied, her resolve solidifying. "But only if you're willing to face these truths, together." Mark lowered his head, as if accepting a burden he had long resisted. A battle between the familiar demons of shame and vulnerability played out in his expression, and the thought made Sarah acutely aware of how intertwined their lives were, stretched by pain, yet capable of resilience. With a deep breath, Mark finally lifted his gaze, vulnerability replaced by something sharper. "What if I fall back into old habits? What if I disappoint you, disappoint Emily?" "Falling isn't failing," she said, her voice firm yet warm. "It's part of the process. Being open to growth is the real victory. You have to allow yourself the space to fail forward." As a widening void yawned between them, Sarah was deeply aware how essential this moment was. They were on the brink of potential change. They stood not just as partners in a marriage, but as individuals grappling with the pressures of their imperfect reality. Desperation held hands with hope as Mark nodded, as if for the first time he understood the value of vulnerability and how it could carve out a new path. It was a moment rife with possibility, bursting at the seams with the chance for renewal. As they delved deeper into their complex emotional landscape, one question loomed large. Could Mark unearth the truth about himself so they could build something new from the wreckage? Or would unearthing his demons bring them to an even darker place? As dawn broke, the sun filtered through the window, casting a warm glow over the room. But the comfort of the light couldn't penetrate the heaviness in Sarah's heart. She glanced at Mark, who sat hunched over on the couch, his rough hands entwined as if wrestling with invisible chains. The echo of his confession still reverberated in her mind. This was a turning point, and it was time to determine their next steps. "Mark," she began, searching for the right words. "We have to set some boundaries. Not just for you, but for all of us, especially for Emily." She could see the flicker of defensiveness in his eyes, and it stirred something primal within her. Protecting their daughter was non-negotiable. "I'm not a danger to her," he replied, his voice strained but tinged with a hint of resentment. "I just need time to get my shit together." "True," she said gently but firmly. "But time alone isn't enough. You have to confront what's been going on inside you, and I need to know that you're actively working towards being better. Please make this a priority, Mark." He nodded, though resistance lingered in his posture. "I want to," he admitted, vulnerability washing over him. "But what if I fail? What if I ruin everything again? Then we address it," she said, her voice strengthening. "But it's crucial that you open up completely. Every second you keep something hidden only makes the burden heavier." The air thickened with tension, and Sarah felt the walls closing in. The day-to-day routines that once provided comfort now seemed trivial, while looming shadows threatened their future. "What about family therapy?" she suggested, trying to keep the tone constructive. "It could offer you a safe space to explore these feelings. We can face them together." The thought of bringing in a third party made her uneasy, but Sarah recognized it as a potential lifeline. Mark looked at her, searching for reassurance, but all he found was the tangible realization of their fractured reality. "Does that mean I'll have to talk about everything? My childhood, my feelings, the drinking? It all seems so daunting." "Everyone's journey is daunting at first," she encouraged. "Those conversations could be the key to unlocking deeper understandings of who you are and what needs fixing." Silence enveloped them again, but Sarah sensed a flicker of resolve beginning to emerge. This was more than a discussion about therapy. It was about spending time cracking open Mark's facade and letting the light in. They both needed to unpack that luggage full of regrets and suppressed emotions. Mark finally sighed, the weight of memories visibly falling onto his shoulders. "I suppose I've been scared to peel back the layers. What if I find something dark lurking beneath?" "Then we tackle it together," Sarah insisted, her determination sharpening. "You're not facing this alone. We will navigate it together, one step at a time." Yet in the back of her mind, doubt crept in. Could she trust Mark enough to believe his commitment was genuine? The issue wasn't just about recognition of flaws. Action was imperative. As they sat in that charged silence, Sarah felt a painful reminder of the stakes. This wasn't just about the past. It was about forging a healthier path for themselves and for Emily. The thought ignited a familiar fire within her, igniting a sense of urgency. Mark shifted again, this time looking directly into her eyes, the fog of uncertainty slowly lifting. "Okay, let's do this. I need to be better, for myself and for you both. And I need you to be honest," Sarah replied, feeling a glimmer of hope. "Can you promise me that?" "I promise. I'm in." A flicker of sincerity crossed his features, and for the first time, Sarah felt that they were united in purpose. With resolve accumulating between them, there was a newfound energy in the room. They had emerged from the depths of darkness into the possibility of healing, yet Sarah knew that the real work lay ahead. As she stood to make coffee, she couldn't shake an unsettling feeling that still hovered. What if, in their quest for healing, Mark discovered truths about himself too painful to bear? Would it fracture the tentative trust they were starting to build? Or could it catalyze a stronger bond? Just as the kettle began to whistle, her phone buzzed, the screen lighting up with a message that threatened to shift the trajectory of their fragile moment. It read, "We need to talk about Emily." Sarah's heart sank. The stakes just rose. What would this mean for their newfound commitment to healing? As the sound of the kettle faded into the background, Sarah felt the weight of the message crush her resolve. "We need to talk about Emily." The words resonated in her mind, amplifying the tension already enveloping their fragile moment. It was one thing to navigate the complexities of Mark's recovery, but the stakes had now been raised into the realm of their daughter's safety. Her fingers trembled slightly as she typed a reply. "Is everything okay?" The seconds stretched out painfully, and yet she couldn't shake the feeling that whatever awaited them in this conversation would challenge everything they had begun to build. When the reply chimed back, it was terse and direct. "We need to discuss recent behavior. This involves her well-being." A rush of panic mixed with a fierce determination surged through Sarah. Emily's well-being had always been her top priority. Now, it felt imperiled. For so long, Mark's struggles with honesty and vulnerability had filled her with doubt. But now those feelings rippled more deeply, intertwining with fear. "Mark!" she called out, striding back into the living room, her heart racing. He looked up, concern shadowing his face. "I just received a message from Emily's teacher. We need to talk about our daughter's emotional state." "What did they say?" His voice was cautious, a knot of worry tightening in his throat. "There are concerns about her behavior. It could be linked to us," she said carefully, choosing her words with measured intent. "The teacher's worried, Mark. I think it's critical we address this together." He shifted uncomfortably, his defenses rising anew. "So now the blame is on me? Because I'm working on my issues? No, that's not the point." Sarah's frustration bubbled up, her voice rising slightly. "This is bigger than that. If we don't handle this properly, it might affect how Emily sees us. It could compound the damage." As the words hung thick in the air, Mark raked a hand through his hair, his aura shifting from defiance to focused contemplation. "You're right. I want to be better. I need to be better. But how do we approach this without making things worse? I can't let her feel the pressure of our baggage." His concern gave her pause. She could see a glimmer of the father he longed to be, yet the specter of his past loomed. This was uncharted territory. The complexities of healing didn't just impact them, but cascaded down to their child. We have to show her that we're working on ourselves, that we're committed to being honest, together. Her voice softened as she spoke, realizing that this was as much about forging a path for Emily as it was about Mark confronting his demons. "We can't just ignore this. We need to be open about it, especially if we're going to suggest family therapy." Mark nodded slowly, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly. "Okay, I'll reach out to the teacher. Get whatever details we need. I won't shy away from this like I usually do." The promise hung in the air, the earnestness in his voice underscoring a newfound determination. But Sarah's pulse quickened with the niggling suspicion that this might take a turn no one anticipated. What if the meeting with the teacher opened doors to events long buried? What if the truth was harsher than they both realized? "There's something else," she added, a tightness crawling up her throat. "If we're to do this right, there may be uncomfortable truths we'll have to face. Yours, mine, and even Emily's." Mark's brow furrowed, a flicker of apprehension crossing his face. "What do you mean? Uncomfortable truths? What if we find that Emily isn't just affected by our past, but also by how we've shielded her from the reality of our struggles?" The silence was palpable, the weight of 1,000 potential revelations hanging delicately between them. They were on the precipice of confronting not just Mark's past, but the open wounds it had left on their daughter. As Sarah held his gaze, the stark realization settled over her. Their fight for healing was escalating into a battle for their family's foundation itself. "Are we ready for this?" Mark's voice held an edge of uncertainty. She could see the flicker of the man she had first fallen in love with, battling with the ghosts of his past. "Together we have to be," she replied, her heart pounding. As they stood on this precipice, ready to confront the complexities before them, a sudden thought pierced through the tension. What else would be revealed when they finally laid bare all the truths in their lives? In that moment, Sarah's phone buzzed again. "Please confirm a meeting with us this week. It's essential." The stakes had just shifted further, and she realized they were living through a potential unraveling of everything they believed to be stable. Would this meeting steer them toward healing or fracture the trust they were beginning to build? The sun filtered through the kitchen window, casting a warm glow over Sarah as she sat across from Mark. The conversation had escalated into a precarious balancing act between hope and fear, truths and secrets. Just days ago, they had sat together, teetering on the edge of uncertainty, and now they faced the daunting task of peeling back the layers of their shared existence. "Today is about clarity," Sarah affirmed, her voice steady but soft. "We need to confront everything. No more shadows. It's time." Mark's eyes reflected the enormity of the moment. "I know, but what if the truth is more than we can handle?" His question hung heavily between them, the reality that they might unearth more than they bargained for lurking at the edges of his tone. "Then we'll face it," she replied, drawing strength from her own conviction. "Together, we can manage whatever comes. Emily's safety and understanding are worth the risk." Their determination echoed the depth of their commitment. A commitment that had cracked under pressure, but was now reinstating itself with fervor. Sarah understood that they were not just confronting Mark's past. They were battling their own apprehensions about the future and about the legacy they would leave for Emily. The doorbell abruptly broke the tense air. Instinctively, they exchanged glances, both knowing it was likely the teacher. Sarah stood, heart racing, and opened the door to reveal Ms. Carson, Emily's teacher, whose warm demeanor was juxtaposed with a serious expression. "Thank you for meeting with me," she said, her voice calm yet urgent. "I understand this is a difficult time, but I think it's essential we discuss Emily's behavior in a candid manner." As they settled around the table, the tension coiling tightly within Sarah's chest reminded her just how pivotal this moment was. Mark adjusted his seat, his body taut with apprehension, silently attempting to shield himself from the implications ahead. "Emily's been having some challenges in class," Miss Carson began, her eyes scanning Mark before landing on Sarah. "She seems anxious and unusually withdrawn, almost like she's guarding a secret. Some of her recent drawings reveal fears that I think stem from the dynamics at home." Each word landed like stones, rippling through the emotional calm they'd been crafting. Sarah felt Mark's gaze flicker toward her, a mix of shame and uncertainty flaring in his eyes. "And you believe that's about us?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I do," Miss Carson replied gently. "I think children often internalize their parents' struggles. If there is tension or unresolved conflict, they tend to absorb that energy and express it in different ways. Emily needs to feel safe." Her voice echoed loudly against the deeper truths Sarah had only recently started to wrestle with. They had been living under a pretense of control, masking their issues, and perhaps that had only added to Emily's struggles. What had they hidden, and at what cost? "We're working on ourselves for her," Sarah spoke up, her heart racing as she leaned into the discomfort. "Mark is committed to engaging in family therapy, but we need your guidance to navigate this." Mark met her gaze, a flicker of gratitude bridging the chasm that had separated them. "I don't want to be a burden on her. I need to be the father she deserves," he added, his voice gaining strength. "Creating a safe space for her involves acknowledging our imperfections," Miss Carson emphasized. "She needs to see that it's okay to express feelings and vulnerabilities, to share fears without judgment." With Miss Carson's words, a realization struck Sarah. They were not merely responsible for their own healing, but they had an obligation to cultivate an environment where Emily could thrive emotionally too. Their journey toward healing wasn't just for Mark's sake, or as a reaction to the teacher's concerns. It was foundational to their family's emotional well-being. "Let's create an open channel for communication," Sarah suggested, a newfound resolve settling within her. "Perhaps we can incorporate family meetings, a time to share and reflect without fear." Mark nodded, an earnestness returning to his voice. "That sounds good. It'll be a stepping stone toward rebuilding trust. It's about progress, not perfection," Miss Carson affirmed. "Encouraging Emily to express herself can help alleviate her anxieties. Emphasize to her that everyone makes mistakes, and that seeking help is a sign of strength." As the meeting concluded, Sarah felt an unexpected sense of empowerment. They had cracked open the door to complex truths, transitioning from an atmosphere of uncertainty toward one of collaborative healing. After Miss Carson departed, Mark ran a hand through his hair, a mixture of exhaustion and relief washing over him. "About the family meetings, are you really okay with that? I mean, pulling everything into sunlight?" Sarah placed her hands over his, grounding them both. "That's the only way forward. We need transparency, for ourselves and for her." Her words resonated with profound truth. They were both realizing that the healing process wouldn't just be about confronting Mark's past. It was about forging a new dialogue about vulnerability, mistakes, and fears as a unified front. In the space they created, a tangible connection formed from honesty and mutual commitment. Sarah envisioned Emily's laughter echoing through the house again, a signal of freedom from fear. Their journey had transformed from mere survival into a pursuit of genuine emotional closeness. Both Sarah and Mark were evolving, not just as individuals, but as partners capable of leading their family into a healthier dynamic. Days turned into weeks, each family meeting unveiling layers of emotion they had long kept suppressed. They shared stories, laughter, and even tears, nurturing a bond that had once trembled on the brink of destruction. Mark's recovery was met with setbacks, but each time he faltered, Sarah remained steadfast, reminding him of their promise to create a safe haven for Emily. The progress wasn't linear, yet they learned to celebrate small victories together. The small moments that now bound them closer. One evening, as the sun dipped beneath the horizon, casting a soft glow into their living room, Mark turned to Sarah. The weight of his journey was visible in his eyes, yet they held a newfound light. "I don't know where I'd be without you. This feels right." Sarah smiled, warmth flooding her heart. "We've both fought our battles, and we're still here, stronger than ever." As the echoes of laughter enveloped them, the uncertainty of their previous life faded further into the background. In those moments, a deep conviction settled within them both. They had reshaped their family's narrative, transforming fear into understanding and uncertainty into trust. And somewhere in the midst of it all, they finally found clarity. They learned to embrace the nuances of love, acknowledging that vulnerability was not a weakness, but a source of strength that could indeed conquer shadows. As they continued this journey together, there was an unspoken understanding of the power they held in shaping their future. They were building a legacy for Emily, one stitched from honesty, resilience, and love. It was their moment to thrive, and as they stood hand in hand, forward and unyielding, Sarah could feel the weight of her heart lifting, realizing he had stepped from the dark into the light. And through it all, she too had emerged as someone strong, committed, and deeply fulfilled. This was her family, a beautiful tapestry woven from trials, triumphs, and transformative growth. Now was the time to share their truth, because it was through the vulnerability and transparency they discovered genuine strength. Do you resonate with Sarah and Mark's journey? Have you faced your own shadows and emerged stronger? You need to subscribe now to witness more tales of personal overcoming. Leave a like now to help spread these enlightening stories. And be sure to comment below your reactions and theories about their transformation. Share this vital message immediately with at least 5 friends who are in need of inspiration and guidance to navigate their own lives. Don't wait even one more second. Join this community of growth and enlightenment.